Good afternoon, everyone. You all very welcome to our final cybersecurity webinar that is going to focus on incident response and cyber hygiene for IT and systems admins. My name is Geraldine Bumia. I'm a risk analyst at NITA. This webinar is organized by the Uganda National Computer Emergency Response Team Coordination Center, which is the focal point for incident handling at both the national and international level. Just a few rules of engagement. As the session progresses, please send in your questions using the Q&A option. It's at the bottom of your screen. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our moderator, is Johnson Tumusime, security analyst at NITA. Johnson is an IT system expert and cybersecurity professional with over 7 years experience in multiple fields of IT. He is currently a security analyst at NITA and is responsible for monitoring, preventing, and stopping attacks on critical government data and information infrastructure. He holds a bachelor's in information systems and various certifications in IT security and digital forensics. With that, I would like to hand over or open the floor to you, Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Geraldine, for that precisely satisfying introduction. Good afternoon, participants, and welcome to this interactive webinar. Our speaker today is going to be Mr. Martin Karungi. Martin is a computer emergency response team analyst working with the National Information Technology Authority. Martin has 9 years working experience in IT space, more precisely in the cybersecurity domain. He's also a policy advisor on cybersecurity at the Office of the President. Martin previously worked with the Central Bank of Uganda as an information security analyst before he joined NITA. In his earlier career, Martin extensively worked with as a software developer at the Clinton Foundation. Martin also serves as a sitting member of the Interministerial Committee on Cybersecurity for the Government of Uganda, the Northern Corridor Integration Project, on the ICT Committee, and the NISAG, that's the National Information Security Advisory Group. Martin holds a bachelor's in Business Information Technology and has received specialized training in multiple cybersecurity disciplines, like digital and mobile forensics from the US, malware analysis and reverse engineering, security operations, command management, enterprise security, and so many. Just from his experience, I can guarantee that he has a lot to share and you'll benefit from this. Please pay close attention to the tips that Martin will be sharing with you. Over to you, Martin.
Thank you, Johnson. It's always a pleasure to have my bio read because I constantly forget how much I've been able to cover in such a short time, and the wealth of knowledge and experience I've gathered working at NITA with an incredible team of people there. Thank you very much for having me over to share with you today very inactly issues concerning cyber hygiene. As you may know, cyber hygiene really is basically, it's a simple term to mean how do we best keep our technology assets in a very healthy state. I like to look at cyber hygiene from the perspective of the human hygiene, right? Like health. There are some few analogies that we use in some of our campaigns that you need to treat your computer or your network or computing assets like you would treat your toothbrush, right? Or the way you would treat an item of clothing. That means you change it regularly, you don't share clothes with anybody, you know, that kind of thing. And so that is the same concept that we would come with, the spirit that we come with to address today's items. I think without further ado, I don't know if the moderator is giving me opportunity to jump straight into my sharing, or do I need anything else before I jump into that?
You can go ahead and share, Matt.
Okay, very well. I will not go into the introductions as you've heard. Martin Karunji is my name, Computer Emergency Response Team Analyst at the National SAT. The National SAT, as you may know or may not, is a body that falls under NITA, and our job is to basically do incident response on cybersecurity related matters. And today's presentation, I am basically going to give you what we call the template for keeping a healthy and a healthy network, a healthy computer asset environment within our different workspaces. So by definition, I'll jump straight into it. This is the more what I would call, this is what you refer largely to as the academic definition. My inclination usually is not to go with academic things because sometimes they are very stiff and yet the actual space is very dynamic. But largely, cyber hygiene is what you do within your environment to maintain healthy systems and improve online security. So that means from very basic things like, password strength when you log in. Is there an active directory that manages your users as they come on board so that you're not letting anybody just walk into your office with a strange laptop and, they can access the Wi-Fi without using passwords and there's no encryption and the like. So in a nutshell, really, it's practices that are often part of the routine to ensure the safety of identity and other details that could be stolen or corrupted. Because largely, every threat actor is interested in something, right? There's a gentleman who mentored me some time back and he told me the reason why people hack systems is because of what they call hack value. There has to be certain thing that they want from your institution, from your organization. Nobody is just coming to hack for fun. There has to be a level of value to it. And so once we have efficient cyber hygiene program, information security policies that help us to govern some of these areas, then we stand less the chance of losing key and vital information to malicious actors. So as I mentioned earlier, I mentioned that cyber hygiene, I compare it a lot to personal hygiene, right? Much like an individual engages in certain personal hygiene practices. So I imagine every morning you brush your teeth. Every day when you start a new day, you wear a new set of clothes, So I just want to innately revert that to cyber hygiene practice. There are nice things that you have to do daily for your computer. As an individual, now when I talk about for a computer, I'm attacking individuals here. For system admins, I'm talking about your network, right? Your firewalls, your configurations. There are certain things that have to have that daily or often check, which we would call the hygiene. Okay, in turn, this aids maintaining properly functional devices by protecting them from outside attacks like malware, right? Basic things like running software updates, right? Because if you notice very largely all the biggest hacks that have happened around the world, if you follow the news, these hacks usually are geared largely to systems that are old or, they are behind by a patch. That's always an easy way in for malicious actors. Relating to practices and precautions that users take, which then aim to keep sensitive organizations within your data safe and secure from external attacks. So there are key things that we have to really work with on our shoulder when we talk about cyber hygiene. And these are things that benefit not only individuals, but businesses, right? Again, I mentioned, always remember that when somebody wants to execute a hack, they are targeting certain key things, right? They're not coming to do it for fun. Think about a thief. A thief is not going to jump into your compound for the sake of it, right? Because there is a lot to lose. But once there's high stuff to gain, then they have impetus, right? There's a value proposition. So there are benefits to us being having a clean and ready environment. to combat some of these attacks. For example, you're protecting personal information, right? I know for sure because we put out this conversation to be shared with a lot of people in the world. So we're not only talking to technical people. When you have your smartphone with you, one of the key things that is very valuable is your personal information, right? I hope you all are aware that things like identity theft are an actual threat to personal information, right? So when you practice cyber hygiene, and cyber hygiene would be simple things like updating your phone or updating your antivirus, as you'll see we go, certain things are protected. Your personal information is so important. Think about it. And I'm sure a lot of you do mobile money transactions, right? A lot of you perform online shopping, right? But with all of this, there's personal information you have to give, right, to this vendor who's going to give you that online service. So when we are vigilant about our hygiene, when we are using our little gadgets, our computers at home or within our offices, we are combating the issue of personal information being safely protected from malicious actors. Business data, right? We might be talking to people here in the business community. There's a competitive advantage if a malicious person can sell your key business secrets. So think about it that way. Right? So if we have a clean and stable environment, then we get the risk on our business that are falling into the wrong hands, or into the hands of somebody who wants to be highly for that kind of information. Keeping devices and computers running well, that means
Martin, we seem to have lost you there. Can you hear us?
certain things
Martin?
like
Martin, if you can hear us, I think we have really lost you.
Martin, yes. Can you hear us? We seem to have lost you. I think your connection is a bit.
I would.
Okay.
Okay, he's back on.
Hi,
Martin.
did I lose you there?
Yeah,
Apologies.
you did for a while, please.
Apologies for that.
Sorry. You can restart the sharing because we're not seeing your screen anymore. Okay.
Is it back up?
Yes, it is now.
Okay, very well. I don't know why you lost me. Johnson,
I think you had just started on this particular slide, so you could just take it from there.
Okay, so protecting personal information becomes a key part or a key benefit of having a clean and stable computing environment. A lot of us do a lot of online shopping, so we share information on the internet with different vendors, right? And that information can be very valuable to somebody who has the right intention for it. Protecting business data, competitive advantage for some of these industries are usually maintained on these computers or servers. So maintaining a clean, smooth running operation within your environment is a benefit or a plus if you practice good cyber hygiene. Devices and computers running well. I mentioned earlier, I used to be a software developer, and one of the things I used to do very regularly was I never used to restart my computer. I would go 3-4 weeks before I do a restart. And one of the things that happens with computers is they have what they call cache memory. Cache memory is a temporary memory that's kept by your computer so that it allows you to access certain things quickly. And a lot of personal information is usually there. What is, for example, things like passwords, right? So that when you're already typing the password, the machine is almost literally guessing for the next characters and the like. So keeping devices and computers running well becomes a very key part of being able to have a healthy and functional environment, computing environment. Cyber hygiene practices also a good safeguard for ransomware and malware. We will look at some of the things we're going to talk about, things like updating software, not downloading from unreliable sources and the like. There's multiple terminologies we're going to get into that you'll hear me mention frequently, things like malware. Basically, these are files that are harmful to a computer or a computer user. And malware is basically a virus, okay? There are multiple versions of viruses, as we will learn very shortly. But malware has now become the ultimate tool for the bad guy, or what you'd call your adversary, because malware now has been so easy to drop through emails. You will see some of the techniques that people use to try and compromise our environments. And sometimes they just send you an email with a link or with a PDF file or an Excel sheet. And since you're in accounts and the email subject is saying, pay urgently, you're very quick to download. Ransomware, also very popular, and it has not only been tied to organizations, but even individual computers, right? And with cyber hygiene, ransomware is a bit of a pain, but it's also very easy to avoid with certain techniques. The best technique I can give you for ransomware, and this one you can even put me on record for it, is make sure you always have an updated operating system. Because what happens is ransomware is targeting key functions of your computer, and those key functions are lying in the foundation of how the operating system works for your computer. So having updated operating systems frequently for people who use, for example, Microsoft, every Tuesday, Microsoft has what we call Patch Tuesday. And this Patch Tuesday is when they send out updates for the operating systems. Hacking is not a very new term. I'm sure all of us have heard it before. Basically, it's an attempt to exploit a computer system or private network using malicious means. Simply put, unauthorized access, right? So that's why it's called hacking. That's when a guy says, I've hacked it. It means that he's not supposed to be there. He just was fiddling his way around and, the door opened and he came through. Antiviruses, I'll mention a lot about antivirus because this is also a very key component in managing ransomware and malware as we go. Now, there are particular tips I want to share that people can go away with. First things first. I think for the general public, one of the biggest targets that attackers are always trying to go after is your password. Think about your password like a key, right? If anybody has access to your keys, especially to your house, that means anybody can walk through your front door. And one of the things that they would always try to do, I just have a friend, actually, we were talking a few hours ago, and they told me somebody called them, asking them for their PIN number, and they said they are calling from UCC. You can imagine. Or they are calling from a telecom. These institutions, by nature of what we call privilege, least privilege, which is a principle of information security, nobody should be asking you to give your password to anyone. Okay, so you have to be very alert. There are a lot of scammers now. They pick a phone, they say, hello, I'm calling you from MTN, and they have now learned even to use the local languages, you can imagine, and they will say, we are calling from MTN and we are asking you to do ABCD, or else your SIM card is going to be shut down, or your mobile money account is going to be locked out. So please, 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 in whatever you do, your password is like a secret. Right? You remember the analogy I used about human hygiene being similar to cyber hygiene. And I said, you do not share, for example, a toothbrush. You will not share a toothbrush. That is very unhygienic if you do it, because we have no idea where the other person's mouth has been. So it is right and fitting that this is something you avoid at all costs. Suspicious links or links from areas that you're not sure of. I'll give you an example. I don't know if you have ever experienced receiving an email that is so funny in terms of the address, the sender. And usually that's what attackers are trying to do. They will send, because nobody's going to send from a legitimate address because they don't have access to legitimate addresses. So what they do is they create funny looking addresses And then those addresses are shared, start to send emails out soliciting either, usually there's a nature of language they use, and one of the language they use is urgency. You will find a message saying priority number 1, right? So already as an individual, as an IT admin, as a human resource manager, finance, already your sense of urgency has gone up. Okay, so usually with those things, you watch very carefully who has sent it, right? What are they trying to address? Is there a link? Is there a PDF? So the moment you cannot identify the sender, then already you know that this is probably something illegitimate trying to come onto our network. Great. So there are certain things that we can do on a very regular basis. First of all, for example, if you make that click that is not from an email you didn't maybe verify, because we are human beings, right? We are always in a rush. We are bound to make errors. Somebody in a conference once told me and said, human beings are the weakest link, because the technology is smart, the humans are dumb. So there will always be that point of fault. But what do we do to remedy the issue? Number one, for IT administrators who are running networks for corporations and governments and different entities, one of the things you need to perform very regularly is a scheduled scan on your computers or your network. A scheduled scan basically says that every so period of time, I must conduct a scan to see if there is anything illegitimate that's running on a computer or a server or within my network. Scanning either on particular, you can decide to scan particular files or an entire computer. There's what we call flash dropping. It's a technique that has been studied under the MITRE attack framework, where somebody comes onto a premises, for example, at your place of work, maybe your 20, 50 staff, and I start to throw flash disks around the office. Maybe 2, or if we have a sleigh, let me give you an example for our office, we have 3 floors. On each of the floors, I scatter some 3 flash disks around. And the way we're all in love with a 32 GB or a 1 terabyte flash, you pick it and plug it straight into your computer. And you start to store your movies, your music, files, if you want to transfer files to work from home. But you have no knowledge of who is the owner of the flash. So instead of being a victim of that, you run quickly and do an antivirus scan on that device so that you're not a victim. Even if it's a friend, they might not have the ill intention, but this flash has moved in places you don't know. So it becomes risky to put it onto your personal computer at the office, because that puts the compromise on the network where you work from. So scanning flash disks becomes very important whenever you have to throw in little removable devices. Confirm the health of the computer and other devices. Now, it's important to have, this might sound a bit difficult because not everybody is very keen on paying for an antivirus service, but I highly encourage you to pay $4 a month will not hurt you at all. Why? Because what you're trying to protect on your individual computer has far greater value than a little $4 a month. And this I'm saying because a lot of us like to download free antiviruses or free software to use on our computers. What we consider free in the long run has an extensive impact on the value proposition for organizations. So don't be shy. First of all, you need to trust the source that you're downloading from. Be very sure that if you're downloading a McAfee antivirus or say a Kaspersky, you are confident about the source of download so that you're not bringing in compromised antiviruses or compromised software into your organization. I mentioned about this, reconsider using flash disks or external drives that you don't own. Again, 2 things could happen. One, if it is given to you by a friend, a spouse, a child, a workmate, a colleague, they might not be having a malicious intention. But the previous locations where those devices have come from could be what opens you up to a whole scale myriad of problems. So always avoid at any cost using devices from sources you don't know or don't trust. Updating software and apps both on laptop and smartphones. I had mentioned this earlier, that there's a lot of, I mentioned that every Tuesday, for example, people use Microsoft computers, or rather Microsoft operating systems. There's updates that come out very regularly. Every time you go to a place and you have access to Wi-Fi, run quickly to your applications, right, on your mobile phone, and have them downloaded quickly for updates, isn't it? Because the longer you keep an old application running, for example, banking. I know a lot of you do bank operations using your smartphones or your USSD phone. It is smart of you to make sure that they are always updated. Your banking applications must be always updated. Why? Because that is, as an individual, as a human being, that is where your source of value is. If an attacker is coming after Martin Karunji as an individual, and they have heard he works in a place X, so maybe he has some money somewhere, he must be using the banking app, so they will start to target that. Once you have updated software on your smartphone, you reduce the risk by almost 90-95% of experiencing a breach on your personal information. Computers in office, applications that you use regularly. That's why I mentioned updates on Tuesdays from Microsoft for people who are using Excel, Word, PowerPoint, name it, all the different products that are there on the market. Great. Strong passwords, very key. I feel this is almost should have been slide number 1 in how we best set ourselves. A password, as I mentioned earlier, is like keys to your house. And once you have weak passwords, that already opens you up to a scale of problems that you cannot even start to imagine. A password is the heartbeat to most systems, right? Because the first thing you do when you pick your phone up to do something, what do? You enter a PIN or a password. Now they have helped us. There is fingerprints and Face ID. Those are a bit difficult to compromise, but not all systems are going to have a face and fingerprint IDs to match. So wherever there is need for us to have passwords, especially for our banking applications, for key systems, for IT admins who are running, say, Active Directories, who are running scan engines, if you're running critical infrastructure, basically, you must be able to set a strong password. Now, there are certain rules that govern passwords. Number 1, it would be nice that your password has a multiple set of characters. So one of the biggest mistakes we like to make is, as human beings, of course, I mentioned earlier, the human is the weakest link. We are sentimental. So you're going to put your graduation date and your mother's name as the password. Can you imagine? But it's understandable. Not to say that you're at fault. You are only human. But there are certain rules that would be nice for you to follow so that you have strong passwords. Change the character. For example, an A, you can turn it into an @ sign. If it's an L, you can turn it into a 1, right? If it's a 0, you can turn it into, rather than O, you can turn it into a 0, right? Exclamation marks, $signs, ampersands, and the like. Those make it much more difficult for hackers to be able to access your systems or your personal devices. I mentioned to you also there's another rule called do not share your password. Treat your password like you would treat a toothbrush, right? Don't share it. That's number 1. Number 2, you can change it regularly. It's important to be able to change your password as often as you can, especially for critical services. Certain organizations implement 30-day password change, right? That means every 30 days you have to be able to, you can't access the organization's resources. Why? Because we are not sure in those 30 days what sites you accessed, what downloads you made, what links you clicked on that could have compromised your individual device. So it becomes healthy that we are changing this password as often as possible. It might be difficult on an individual level, but for the safety of what you have, it is key that you perform password changes regularly. Password managers are good. This is to take away that burden, right? So that you don't have to start thinking of complex passwords. Whenever you go to, for example, say your Firefox or your Chrome or your Safari, it will suggest to you a password and say, this is complex, right? And you can click on that. The beauty is that it will store the password for you so that when you access your banking application, when you access your Active Directory, when you access your email servers, and it requires authentication, already the complex password has been kept for you by the password manager. So all you're doing is entering your username, then the password manager does the rest for you. This is an effective way for having complex and strong passwords. It is imperative that you have also other layers of authentication, what we call multi-factor authentication, or two-factor authentication, or three. Multi can be many, but the easiest for individuals, for example, your social media, we have seen stories of celebrities getting hacked and their addresses being taken, or sorry, their handles, all because they only had one layer or one factor of authentication, which was a password, and probably it was weak. Now, if you have multiple layers, it makes it harder. And that's why there is nothing like a hack-proof system. The whole point about all these practices, these cyber hygiene practices, is to make it more difficult for somebody to attack your system. So multi-factor could be, you could be, for example, say use a PIN, use a password, you use an SMS, or what they call the one-time password that's usually sent by the organization or service that you're trying to access. We have tokens, we have facial recognition, and fingerprinting. So that's the biometric side of it. There are buildings, I know, for you to be able to access, all the four have to be in place. So you can imagine the level of security. It becomes extremely difficult for somebody to compromise. If they get the password, chances are high they don't have access to the phone of the individual. So that means the two-factor code or the one-time password code will be sent to a telephone that he probably doesn't have, right? If it's if they're using biometric, right? So you have to go in and cut someone's finger off to be able to access. But now even those units have become smart. The moment the finger is below a certain degree or is not feeling live, what they call, I think there's a new technology they have now imparted onto biometric systems that captures how do I say it? The alive animation of the body organ. If it's a face, if it's an eye, if it's a fingerprint, it won't be able to access. So those become very key factors in being able to, maintain a healthy computing environment. Device encryption is important. So imagine they have bypassed all those levels, and now they have reached the point of taking the file that they want to take. It is important that we IT admins, you encrypt your storage devices, especially where you do backup. Don't back up things as they come. So think about it this way. If you copy files to a flash disk and place the flash disk there, the next person who can pick that flash disk and plug it into their computer is in position to see the information that you have placed. So encryption then now is another level of security that says, even if you have access to that flash disk, if you plug it into your computer, wherever you are, you will not be able to succeed with copying, editing, or in doing any kind of change or alteration to those documents, to key documents that you may find. So especially at backup stage, it's important because some organizations, for example, banking institutions, basically institutions that have very important or valuable information, it is key that all your devices are encrypted, even your smartphones, so that when somebody comes and snatches your smartphone out of your car while you're driving home through the window, even if they go with it, as long as there's a level of encryption, there will be nothing much that they can do. backing up regularly. This cuts across to the general public and also to people that are running critical systems or systems of value to their organizations. There is a feature on WhatsApp, if you use the messaging application, that says backup weekly, backup daily, backup, I think, monthly. I don't know how regular the specifications are, but it is imperative that you choose how comfortable you are to conduct backups. The backup basically says that in the event that the device is damaged, stolen, its system malfunction, we can be able to pick up instantly. Think about it this way. If an institution like a bank lost all your personal information, that means even your name, your photographs, where do they start if they don't back up? So backup becomes very important for us to be able to restore our services to our customers, to restore our devices to the state in which they were previously without feeling that glitch. You might not be able to back up on tape, but you can back up in the cloud, right? So that tomorrow, instead of you having to rely on having to move to a physical location to pick disks to come and reinstall the operating system, you just go online, they find your most recent backup, and they pick it up from there. Imagine how seamless businesses are like because of this service, backup service. The variations of backup are many. We can do on-site, on-premise, we can do on the cloud, or we can even choose a different physical location to which we can move our backups to. Great. Wiping your computer, laptops, smartphones before you sell them, right? For example, if Ministry of Health was saying we're disposing of, say, 100 computers to a hospital in a location X, it is very key that before those computers are given away, they do a total wipe. Well, someone will argue there is forensic technology that we can use to recover that. Well, it is key that maybe you retain storage devices. So you can either plug out your hard drives and then keep them, or your RAM chips. This is for IT administrators who are running big organizations. The beauty about your phones is that once the deletion is done, that is well and good. So you want to buy a new phone, but you want to sell the previous one, please, don't just go to the guy at the shop and switch it off and say, okay, say how much money are you going to give me? It is important that to avoid your personal information from leaking, you conduct a total wipe on those devices. Additional tips for small and medium enterprises, but also can be applied to individuals. We're looking at things like regular patching, which I've talked about, firewalls to prevent malicious IPs from accessing your resources, network resources. Audit your IT infrastructure, right? Not
Martin,
using old technology, and now the new technology is
oh,
one.
Martin,
Yes, please.
we seem to have lost you like some 30 seconds in there.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can now.
Okay. So I was mentioning the need to have firewalls, the need to conduct or do what they call audit for your IT infrastructure. The beauty about an audit, as I mentioned, is like a health check, right? You don't want to wait to feel sick to go to a doctor. Okay, so it is important that every half year you go to your doctor and say, oh, let's have a look, how am I performing? Then they tell you, okay, so your amino acids are up, that means you're eating too much protein. So now add this. Now, back to our computing atmosphere, we now say, yes, we can see you're using an old operating system for a core banking system, right? Please have this changed. So don't be afraid, don't look at audits as pain points, but look at them as a way to keep your organization, your environment in a healthy state. Train your staff on cybersecurity practices. What we are doing today is a sort of training, right? That need to be alert, that need for you to be able to look at things beyond the normal eye, so that you are in position to defend your organization and maintain your cyber hygiene. Separation of duty is key so that not everybody can access certain resources. I worked in an institution once where they believed in fairness. So that means the tea lady was also able to access the network, which is great. But what on the network could she access? And this is where I commend them. They were only able to access the internet, and that was it. So that means FTP files, there's no way they can access such things. Other network resources, internal network IPs that are remote to key systems, there was a separation of duties. So it is important that you are able to segment your network so that not everybody can access everything there. If it's a system, right, you don't want your accountant to be able to access what the auditor does, or vice versa, because there is a reporting chain. So it is key that you have separation of duties in your networks and in your internal applications. Least privilege principle, you remember, I talked about this. Creation of an incident response plan. This is very key, imperative. Why? Because at one point or the other, there will be an accident. It's like driving. You can't say I'm the best driver in the world. There will always be a problem. But if you have a response plan, then it makes it easier for you to recover from the problem. And the response plan for you as a car or owner or as a driver is to have car insurance, right? That means you have planned. You have not said, I'm going to go and cause an accident, but you have planned that in the event it happens, this is how I respond to. So there are particular things I'll show you quickly when we talk about incident response planning. Authentication and access control, security monitoring, these are key so that we're not having everybody who can access our server room, right? Why does the guy from HR need to be able to walk into our server room? Okay. Why does a company driver have to be able to go to our registry for documents? Okay. So it's important that we have access control for people coming into the building. When visitors come, when you give them a visitor's card, where can they go? If they are going to see somebody in finance office or procurement office, that card should not be able to open the floor to the executive director or to the minister's office. So it becomes important that we have that level of access control for different elements within our institutions. Security monitoring is key. That means having tools like a SIM, firewall. I will not talk about particular brands for these, but it's important that you are able to keep an eye on what's going on with the different devices, with the different resources that are running within your environments. Great. So I had mentioned incident response planning. I find this very critical for any institution that is running any form of computing assets. And basically, you will ask me, what is it? What is this incident response about? Basically, procedures that you use to identify, eliminate, and recover from a cyber threat. If you look at this little green circle thing that I put here, there are certain, it's a plan that is documented on paper and can be refined and repeated multiple times. I like to look at an incident response plan like a visit to your doctor, right? When you arrive at the hospital, the first thing you do is go to a desk, and at that desk, they will say, are you paying cash or insurance? Then from there, they send you to a little room, they check the heartbeat, they check the blood pressure, they check multiple things there. And so that's what an incident response plan does for us. First of all, we're able to identify multiple, in the event of an incident, we can identify where has the problem come from. Is it a firewall that has gone down? Is it a server that has gone off? Is it our network that is completely cut off? Is everyone's computer showing the blue screen of death, right? So being able to identify the different areas or the different stakeholders during the incident. Testing is then also it's key because regularly, which I didn't advise when I talked about backups, is that it is good to test your backups because you don't want to say, we have been backing up our stuff for the last 5 years and then you're hit by ransomware. And then when you come to do the backup, it doesn't work. So it is key in your capacity to be able to respond to an incident that you carry out some tests to make sure that we can be able to recover in the event things hit the fan. Okay, the plan, which is somewhere here, is key. And the plan is, this is how we shall recover in case of an incident of such a nature, right? During the attack, there are certain things that need to happen, right? Number one, depending on the size of your institution and the impact that it will have on the public, it is key that you can reach out to the general public and, you know, be very front with them and let them know. But you have to train somebody so that you are not making a mistake by overly sharing information. Otherwise, chances of losing confidence in you from your stakeholders is high. So you have to have somebody who can communicate very clearly and engage also experts, right? Don't suffer in silence. As you will see in my last slide, I'll share with you our capacity to respond and assist government agencies or departments and ministries. After the attack, first of all, we need to be able to establish, okay? So what really happened? We conduct analysis, and then we can continue so that our business does not come to a halt because of the situation as it is. Very good. In my final slide here, number one is we have two key bodies that we constantly update, because I'm sure a question will come and say, where do I get this information on what's going on? What's the latest update for Microsoft? What's the latest update for Windows? What's the latest update for VMware or WordPress, right? So we have these two key bodies that we work with. I will be very selfish. Let me talk about the business side first. We have what we call the National CERT, which I represent in this webinar. We have weekly updates on vulnerabilities for key systems that are being used within the country. So you can go there, read. We have links that will take you to, of course, these are well-researched information, links that can take you now to where you can download the patches and updates. And then, of course, for the individuals, which are the Ugandans, the Wananchi, there's the bsafeonline.uganda, which is an initiative under NITA Uganda and the National CERT to be able to disseminate key information on what to do in case of certain breaches, or how to update smartphones, how to prepare for peak seasons. For example, during Christmas, a lot of people do shopping. How do you want to identify that I am not giving my credit card or debit card information to a fraud company, but in an actual Jumia website, an actual Amazon website? So these are areas where you can stay up to date with areas concerning maintaining clean cyber hygiene practices. With that, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you very much for listening to me. I will hand over now to the moderator if there are questions, so that we can tackle these as we go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin, for that very wonderful presentation and very elaborate explanation of some of the tips that the team and the participants here can use to safeguard their environments, both them individually and their environments. So I would, we're going to have a quick interactive question and answer session. I'm going to read for you the questions we have, Martin. I don't know if you can access them. We have one from Daniel. He basically asks if, he's asking if there are tools, what tools you've interacted with for patch management for hybrid OS environments like Windows and Linux, and are they proven tools that you've worked with and offer same advantage? So could you give examples of some of the tools that you have used for these?
Well, thank you, Daniel. So for tools, you will not have something hybrid because of how different the operating system setup is. Please remember that Linux has a very different setup from Windows in terms of file management systems. And so that usually now means you as an admin, as an IT admin, has to be ready to dive deeply into being able to run updates on both. The beauty about Windows is now Active Directory gives you that level of power where you can say, as long as the computer logs onto my network on a particular day, I want to run a patch, whatever the user does, it has to run. And that's the power in using AD or Active Directory for Windows. Linux, it's a script that you can write. If your bash skills are good, You can go on the internet and pick a bash script that you can run to update all your Linux servers at a particular time or particular date. It's just, I think it's about 2 lines of code that you can write to feed into the main server to be able to carry out updates for Linux. Windows is more automated. It's a graphical user interface, so it's click, 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 apply, where Linux requires a bit of knowledge on bash scripting. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. I hope that's clear, Daniel. So for those who have been asking about the recording, this session is live on YouTube, and the link has been shared in the chat. So you can always, if you haven't followed, if you've missed anything, just go to YouTube. It's always going to be there. You can follow through from there. Okay, so we'll go to the next question. This is from, I think Geraldine has just reshared the link. You can see it there. Okay, so one from Douglas. Douglas says, I imagine that password manager would be a weakness, given that your password are stored in a single point. Over to you, Martin.
Douglas, you have a good point, absolutely. However, the power in password manager is here. You set one complex password for the password manager, right? Now, if the password manager password is compromised, that means the password was not strong enough. So that means you're going to pick one heavy complex password. As I told you, the more complex they are, the more difficult it is for them to access, the harder it is. So the whole point behind complex passwords is to reduce and deter the appetite of the hacker. So if it's strong enough, then you are safe to go, I can assure you. Maybe, I don't know if we have time. Give me 1 minute. I just want to show you something. There is a website called How Strong Is My Password? I'm just going to share with you my screen. Moderator, would you allow me to do that just for a minute?
Yes.
I want to give our people some comfort.
We just have 4 minutes, so I think
yes, allow me to do this. Allow me to do this for you. Okay, very well. If you look carefully, if you have your screen on, there's security.org and the link is how secure is my password. So let's say a simple password. Let me use the actual word password, right? P-A-S-S-W-O-R-D. You see, and it tells you instantly that your password will be cracked instantly, right? This is the strength in passwords. But what if I did this? I want to give you a password. I will not tell you because this is a key password. It will take a system, a computer, if they're doing what they call brute force hacking, 93 trillion years to break this password down. I'll tell you what's in here. In here are characters. So we have @ signs, numbers, as I told you, different numeric figure characters, and uppercase alphabet. And that is how simple it is for you to deter some of these attacks. So I hope I've been able to ably answer the previous question on password strength being compromised for the password manager. Thanks.
Thank you, Martin. Okay, that was really clear, and I hope you've all seen that site. You can all make use of it in case you're setting up passwords for your servers. They need to be as complex as possible because anything can. You don't compromise security these days. Okay, now third question is from Stephen. Are there companies that NITA has blacklisted for use within Uganda, such as hardware and software vendors?
So, Stephen, unfortunately, this does not fall within my section. I would be lying if I can give an answer on this. However, if you went to our website, there is an info, I think, at nita.go.ug email that you can write to, and you can post that question for a response. Unfortunately, I can't give a response to that. I'm not very conversant with that particular part.
Okay, that is very, very clear. Next question is from Arthur Opio. He says, how best can we plan cybersecurity trainings? In Makerere, where I work, we have over 3,000 staff and over 20,000 students. Outreach is so big and we can only do so much. We have done some videos, continue to write, but we feel the mountain is too big to climb. What other ways can we engage them? Before you respond, Martin, I think if because for instance, like this webinar, it's been running for a while, and we've shared this.
Correct.
One of the ways that we do it is through this, because that number is big. You can't really plan to have all of them at once, but the outreach of things like this can be big, and if you had shared with the students, I think they would have benefited. But you can also respond, Martin.
So Arthur, I mean, like anything, the beginnings are tough. The beginnings are tough because a lot of these concepts are new. And I just urge you, this is now, I'm appealing to you as an individual, not as an expert or as a professional, but I urge you to continue. You lose nothing from preaching the same message continuously. You need to proceed even harder, because now you're mentioning that you have so many big people, but I can see you already have initiatives, you're doing videos, you're doing write-ups. I hope on reporting date, you encourage your students to follow, your Twitter pages, your Facebook pages, YouTube channels, where you disseminate this information. There is always conversion, but the conversion happens slowly. It doesn't happen overnight. Thanks, Johnson.
Thank you, Martin. Arthur, that is really clear. And I see you've also said you've been sharing them and they've helped. So like it says, this conversion doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, but I think with continued support and when you spread the gospel, we shall have all these students and staff really trained with time. Correct. Then we have a question from the last one from Douglas. Which operating systems, that's between Windows, Linux, and Mac, would you recommend for best security?
Douglas, a system is as good as the user, right? I've mentioned to you basic things that cut across all these systems, whether it's Linux, Mac OS, or Windows. You could think experts tell you Linux, but Linux is great because of how far you can reach certain places in terms of using tools. All of them have their strengths, but if the user is the weak point, then all of them are equally as weak, right? So the system is only as great as the user. So there is none that is the best, but because all of them have different purposes that they can serve, right? They all have their strengths in different areas, but also have their weaknesses in the different areas. So I would not recommend one because I have used all of them and I'm still using all three. But again, the efficiency is based on what I want to achieve, but also how much knowledge I have in terms of securing these systems. I hope I've answered Douglas. Over to you, Johnson.
Thank you very much, Martin. I see time has really tried to be on our side, but now I believe it's time. We don't want to over delay this. We have tried to share our pages as a start, and we shall continue more of these engagements as time goes on. Please feel free to reach out, share more questions, and most of the links that are related to the training have been shared in the chat. Pick them there. Like I mentioned earlier, we have this session live on YouTube, and it will be there, so you can download and still give your comments as time goes on. With that, I want to thank you, Martin. Thank you for taking the time. I know you're a very busy man, but
thanks, Johnson.
took the time to make it this time. I can guarantee we had a very good participation. It has been engaging. We still have questions coming in, but we don't want to delay some other engagement. It's always 1 hour. So thank you for your time.
Awesome.
Geraldine, I think it's over to you now.
Yes, thank you. Oh, before we close the meeting, I would request maybe Martin to give just some last minute gems in terms of within the area of cybersecurity. Because this is our last webinar. And it will be before we have another one. So.
Okay, Geraldine.
Yeah.
Johnson, thank you very much. The moderator, Geraldine as well, thank you very much. I would also like to extend my thanks to the team at NITA that has been continuously running this campaign. I think now we are in month 2. Am I right? Yeah, so big congratulations to you guys for pulling it off. The biggest piece of advice I can share with anybody whether individuals or people who want to enter the space of cybersecurity or the guys that are already in it, is to have a very hungry mindset to continuously learn. Because the thing about our field is that it evolves overnight. You wake up today and there's a new ransomware that nobody has a clue about, right? You're going to be grappling and running like headless chicken. So the more you embrace yourself with knowledge, the more you're reading, the more professional interactions you have. All these webinars, COVID, I think, was a blessing in many ways for cybersecurity experts, because everybody now is dispensing their information online and so regularly. So it becomes healthy that we have that continuous engagement with all these different vendors. I'm very excited, especially when you see a particular vendor coming out to say, I have a webinar on how to, solve 4G vulnerability in Oracle. That's exciting to hear that kind of stuff. So my advice to you all is, please just be hungry, read, research, reach out to professionals, to look at all these Twitter pages we have shared with you, with the NITA and SAT and Be Safe Online accounts. A lot of the stuff we read, a lot of the stuff we research as well, we share there. So that's my 2 cents for everybody who has an interest in the particular space. Thanks, Geraldine.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Before you log off, maybe you can just share your some of your social media channels, LinkedIn or Twitter, where someone maybe can reach out to ask further questions within the area of cybersecurity. You can just type it in your chat. Thank you. Yes, so on behalf of NITA and the National SAT Coordination Center, I just want to say thank you to Martin for his informative presentation and the responses to the questions raised. And to Johnson, thank you for wonderfully moderating this session. And to the participants who have been there since the first webinar and up to the 6th one, thank you very much. And also for those who joined in the middle, thank you. This is not the end. We'll keep having more of these cybersecurity awareness sessions. Thank you very much. And then I also want to say a special thank you to Directorate for ICT, Makerere University, for using your platform to promote this the cybersecurity webinar. Thank you all and have a blessed week. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Geraldine. Bye-bye.